G'day, folks. How you going? Welcome back to Encounters Down Under. Welcome to a new season. It's great having you back here and joining me here. It's great to be back here. It's been a little while since I've been on, and I'm going to be a little bit rusty there, so bear with me, guys. But either way, it's still good to have you here joining me. Wherever you're watching from, listening from, be sure to hit that like button for me there to start off with. There would be great help there. Just yeah, whatever you can do to help share it out to your friends and family. But look, I hope everyone had a great, safe Christmas and New Year's there. Hope you enjoy yourselves with your family and had an absolute wonderful time. And I hope your year of 2023 was good. And then 2024 is going to be even better for you. So anyway, look, let's go and get cracking to this. And look, we got Grant Lavac here with us. I'm sure you by now you'd know who Grant Lavac is. And I'm going to go and get him on here, get him joined in there. G'day, mate. How you going?
G'day. Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Mate, it's great having you. Happy New Year to you too, mate. I hope you had a good year. Good Christmas with your family.
I did. It was good to recharge the batteries for a few weeks. Had about 2.5 weeks off work, so good to unwind, unplug, and recharge. So yeah, back at it. Looking forward to a bigger and brighter year than 2023. So, but yeah, it's good to be back on with you. So thanks for having me on.
No, that's great, mate. Look, it's great to have you on, mate. It's been a while since I've been meaning to get you on there for a while now to go and get refreshed on what's going on in regards to Australia's sort of involvement or lack of, when it comes to the UFO sort of topic here, and sort of see where you're if you're doing a bit of investigations as well, you're doing the stuff, little documentary there on regarding Westall. So you've been busy over the past year. So
yeah, it's been a busy last. Well, I mean, like a lot of folks, when COVID, particularly those that are in Melbourne. I mean, we had some of the harshest lockdowns on the planet, and throughout COVID, so many of us just soaked up the topic as much as we could. And I said before, I tried to learn as much as I could from as many as I could. And in 2023, was able to share a lot of updates with those that find my YouTube channel and content of interest, and put together a little documentary as well. I was able to get down to a reunion event, witness reunion event for the Westall flying saucer incident in April of last year, and was a number of all the primary witnesses that were there. A small number of them were very generous in giving in their time and happy to go on camera, and I was able to just record them in long form interview format just on my iPhone, and then kind of cut it all together, edit it all together for a nice documentary that's shy of 90 minutes. So that was one of the highlights of my 2023, was to meet the Westall witnesses, as well as get on site at the Grange where that famous incident from the 6th of April 1966 happened.
Yeah, because it would have been quite an emotional sort of event returning there. I know they do it every year, basically, but I'm sure every time they come back there, it's going to be quite an emotional ride for them, knowing that there's nothing there to go and back up their story.
And I didn't know about the event. It was Shane Ryan who I'd connected with. Shane Ryan's one of the, I guess, lead researchers on the Westall case for so many years now. And he told me about this annual reunion event that the witnesses have. And throughout COVID, that obviously put a bit of a spanner in the works for them. And the event went on hiatus. So April of last year was the first time they had it in a few years. And I really, I really appreciated them sharing their recollections and stories and memories of the day. But I think I gathered from those that were there, they also really look forward to it, because it's a chance to not just, get together and the camaraderie of being all there, folks that shared such a impactful event in their lives, but also keep the memories alive, keep the recollections fresh, because it's now 58 years after the Westall incident happened. And, I mean, I can't remember what I did yesterday for most of the time. So trying to remember what happened 58 years ago, I imagine, can be a bit of a challenge. So I believe it's a good opportunity for them to not just to get together and have a bit of a high five and a hug, and but also share their memories of the day and talk about the ongoing evidence, or the ongoing information that comes out, because I know Shane Ryan is always on the search for more information, uncovering more witnesses. So I think it's an opportunity for them to to keep apprised of any new developments in the Westall case and so on. So it was a really good event. Anyone that lives in Melbourne, and I know there's a couple in the live chat, if they do it this year, it's a really good event to go along to. It's open to the general public. There's no charge, obviously. It's free of charge, just very informal. Some people take their own picnic lunch with them, and just a chance to get to know the witnesses and share, not just hear from them, but share stories that you may have and experiences that you may have as well. So I would certainly encourage anyone that's interested to learn more about the Westall case, or just to hear from like-minded people that take the topic seriously. Get along to it if you're interested.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get down there one year and do my own little bits and pieces over it and whatnot. I won't match up to your little doco you did there, but I'm sure it'll give it a crack.
Well,
yeah,
so
it's
Shane
still
Ryan, just for anyone that's interested, Shane Ryan has a Facebook group that I think is called, it's just called the Westall Flying Saucer Incident Facebook group. I think it's a private group. You kind of have to be permitted in to avoid trolls and bots and so on. But if you want to learn more about not just the reunion event, but the case in general, it's a really good group and resource. Yeah,
no, that's wonderful. So look, you've done something recently, just before the end of the year there, if I recall, regarding, was it not Aero? Was it Aero? No, it is Aero. So you have to refresh me. I'm really going mind blank here now. The Australian, the Americans, is it? That's not Aero.
You might be. I suspect you might be referring to. So in May of last year, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, when he was speaking publicly at NASA's UAP Independent Study Team public meeting, he revealed to the world that, this is in May of last year, that he had just held his, being RO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Officer, the Pentagon's UFO investigatory body. He had just hosted the inaugural Five Eyes Forum on UAP. And for folks in the audience that might not know what the Five Eyes are, that's an intelligence alliance across 5 countries: the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And so when I heard that for the first time from Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the now former director of ARA, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I wonder what Australia's level of participation or involvement in that meeting or briefing was, because really anyone that's followed Australia's interest or really lack thereof in the UFO UAP topic in the last couple of years will know that Australia's doing jack all on the topic. They're really towing the line of move along, folks, there's nothing to see here. They haven't acknowledged that a conversation even needs to be had on the UAP topic, despite our closest ally, our US ally and Five Eyes partner, taking UAP incredibly seriously from a national security threat and safety of flight perspective, not just the Pentagon, but also members of Congress. And they've reiterated that line time and time again now over the last couple of years. And more importantly, that UAP is not isolated to the United States. It's not a North American problem. UAP is a global issue. And yet Australia, has buried its head in the sand on this topic, despite what the serious approach that our US allies taking to the topic. And that's very frustrating. But that all changed in December of last year. So only really a month ago, I was able to break some news in an Australian context. And to kind of backtrack and set the stage for your audience. So May of last year, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick revealed to the world that he just held this inaugural Five Eyes Forum on UAP, this meeting, this briefing across those Five Eyes member countries on UAP. Now, subsequent reporting that came out of Defense Scoop in the United States and an investigative journalist in Canada, Daniel Otis, those guys were probing US DOD to try to get a sense as to, well, which Five Eyes members attended. Did they all attend? Did some not attend? So Canada, we were able to learn very early on, only a month after that Five Eyes Forum event, that Canada attended. They had a defense representative attend the Five Eyes Forum on UAP. And Defense Scoop, the great reporting from Brandy Vincent at Defense Scoop, she was able to reveal that a defense representative from New Zealand, the New Zealand Defense Force, had also attended in Washington, D.C. But we didn't know anything about the UK and Australia. And I and others had reached out to the Australian Department of Defence and the current Minister for Defence, Richard Marles, to inquire as to what was Australia's level of participation in the Five Eyes Forum. And all we were getting back was just radio silence, basically nothing. I mean, the Air Force responded to me saying that, the Royal Australian Air Force didn't attend the Five Eyes Forum on UAP, but we didn't really know anything else. We didn't know if there's any representation from the Australian Department of Defence. So then fast forward from May, when that Five Eyes Forum on UAP happened, to the 20th of June, where Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, the Greens senator for Tasmania, who's been the only senator to date that's taken an interest in this topic in an Australian context and had the courage to ask questions in Parliament, he submitted a question on notice, which is a written question that can be submitted to government agencies, the Australian Department of Defence, because Senator Whish-Wilson sits on the Senate. He's a participating member for the Senate Estimates Committee for Defence, Foreign Affairs and Trade. So he submitted a written question, what's called a question on notice, directed to the Australian Department of Defence with a number of questions. And one of his questions was, did Australia attend the Five Eyes Forum in the United States? Did it attend a United States briefing on UAPs? A month later, on the 19th of July, the Australian Department of Defence responded to Senator Whish-Wilson's question on notice and responded categorically, Australia did not attend a United States briefing on UAPs. So a flat categorical denial that Australia had any participation, involvement in that Five Eyes Forum, which was very, very unusual, because you would think that Australia, being such a close ally of the United States, being in lockstep with really every defense initiative that the US spearheads, why would Australia not at least want to engage the United States, learn from them about UAP? What learnings could they gain from the US's response to the UAP issue thus far? Much like the Royal Australian Air Force back in February of last year sought information and a briefing from the United States, courtesy of the air attaché of the United States in Washington, D.C., on the shoot down of the Chinese spy balloon and those 3 unidentified aerial objects. So they sought information and a briefing on those events because they represented a national security and safety flight risk, but Australia wouldn't touch the UAP topic, which represented exactly the same threat, national security and safety of flight. So fast forward the clock now to the 15th of December, only last month, what's that, a month ago, where the Australian Department of Defence responded to a follow-up series of questions on notice that Senator Whish-Wilson had submitted to the Australian Department of Defence, and those questions on notice were submitted on the 2nd of November. And I know that because I actually had a hand in drafting those questions, proposing questions for Senator Whish-Wilson's consideration and his office. So I knew which questions were going to be asked. And so that was on the 2nd of November. 15th of December, the Australian Department of Defence responded to, this was the question that I had actually drafted for Senator Whish-Wilson's consideration. The question was, working on the assumption that what we had been told from the Australian Department of Defence back in July, that Australia did not attend the United States briefing on UAPs, working on the assumption that that information was factual and accurate, the question was to the Australian Department of Defence on the 2nd of November, did the Australian Department of Defence receive an invitation from the US All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, to attend the inaugural Five Eyes Forum on UAP in May 2023, led by ARO Director Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick? The response that came back to that question, the response the Australian Department of Defence gave on the 15th of December was yes. A defence representative at the Australian Embassy in Washington attended. So a complete backflip, a complete 180 on what they had said, what they had responded to Senator Whish-Wilson's question on notice back in July. So a true what the F, a WTF moment. What is going
Yeah,
on?
exactly.
Is there some real deception being played, and the Australian Department of Defence has lied to a sitting senator and the Australian taxpaying public, and then been kind of caught red-handed with a follow-up question and having to now admit that they did attend? Or is there some other level of catastrophic incompetence going on where the Australian Department of Defence can't organise a piss up in a brewery? What's going on? Is it a combination of the two? So that's really where we're currently at. We now know that Australia did participate in the Five Eyes Forum on UAP in May of last year, and I've been on a mission since that information was revealed last month to see what information I can request through the Freedom of Information Act to find out, well, who attended, what was the nature of the discussion, what resources and reports and correspondence communications were exchanged prior, during, and post event. So that kind of hopefully brings you and your audience up to speed as to where we're at. But it's going to be a very interesting month ahead, where the next Senate estimates hearing is, I think, scheduled for February. I doubt Senator Wish Wilson will be able to attend that event, and I can get into why I think that's the case. But I suspect he will have a number of relatively pointed and pertinent questions for the Australian Department of Defence as to why did they lie back in July of last year? Why couldn't they get it right and find factual, accurate answers to his questions when he asked them? So that's a long-winded answer for you, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, it's like a Scottish debunker says in the comments. It's absolutely disgusting the fact that they've lied to us blankly, saying that we didn't attend, and then it had to take 6 months for them to come back and go, "Oh, actually, yeah, no, we did attend." Like,
Yeah.
how does it even get to that point? Like, it just also makes you wonder, like, how much is they actually lying to us as well regarding any other questions or any other
Well,
sort of information we're trying to get out of them.
it doesn't instill, I imagine, if you're a sitting senator like Senator Wish Wilson, it doesn't really instill a lot of confidence in you going forward. That if you're a member of a Senate estimates, like Senator Wish Wilson is a participating member, and he's the Senate Estimates Committee's mission is to scrutinize taxpayer spending, hard-earned taxpayer dollars on Australian initiatives, projects, and so on, to make sure that there isn't waste, there isn't abuse of taxpayer money. It's going into programs that are delivering a return on the taxpayer's investment and producing some positive outcomes for Australia more broadly. So it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in a sitting senator to know that, well, they ask a question going forward, are they going to get the correct factual answer on other topics? It doesn't really give them a lot of faith that the Australian Department of Defence is going to exercise its due diligence to really, dot the I's and cross the T's and come back to him with answers that are accurate pertaining to a question that he asked. So I think that's going to be a big part of it going forward. And I suspect there will be some coverage on that in the Australian media in the not too distant future. I can't say any more on that, but I suspect that will be something that we'll see in the months ahead.
Yeah, and I remember, I think you did it maybe a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago. I can't quite remember now when you did, but you actually even asked if they're going to start bringing in a reporting system. That now because the US is obviously doing that too, and you got a flat out no.
Yeah, so that was the other thing that was significant of last year. So in June of, it was probably, I think it was June of last year or even May of last year, I submitted a petition to the Australian House of Representatives, which anyone can do. You can jump on the Australian Parliament House's website. Just if you search for petitions, you can petition the Australian House of Representatives on any topic that is important to you. And for me, I wanted the House of Representatives to consider conducting a formal review of the Australia's position on UAP, and more importantly, consider implementing an investigatory body that would assess the national security threats and safety of flight risk that UAP pose. So that was the petition. We're able to secure 759 signatures, which was extremely, I was incredibly amazed that we were able to get that many signatures. And it was accepted by the House of Representatives. It was then formally submitted to the Australian Minister for Defence, Richard Marles, for review and response. That response finally came back in, I think might have been late November, early December, basically throwing cold water over the entire petition and saying, the Australian Department of, towing the old line, the Australian Department of Defence, sees no scientific or other compelling reason to continue to, explore devoting resources to the investigation, reporting, or recording of UAP. So they really just poured cold water over the petition, which was frustrating, disappointing, not unexpected. I suspected that was going to be the response all along, but the important thing is that's now formally documented with the House of Representatives. It's exposed more people in Australian Parliament, members of Parliament, senators, across the UAP topic, and hopefully we'll start to get other people in positions of leadership in Australia starting to follow Senator Whish-Wilson's lead and ask questions about UAP in Australian context, because that's all we want. We as Australians want our government, people that we elect into positions of authority, and our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. This is a topic that's important to us. We take it incredibly seriously. We want the Australian government to acknowledge this as a true phenomenon, because the United States has admitted that is a real thing. It's a phenomenon that exists. It's not science fiction like the Royal Australian Air Force, members of the Royal Australian Air Force think it is. It's a global issue. It's a national security threat. It's a safety of flight risk. So we as Australians want our government to acknowledge the UAP issue, to get off its ass and investigate it, and to try to come to reach some conclusion as to what UAP are. What can be attributed to UAP. So
it doesn't make sense that the fact that they're saying there's no scientific evidence or anything like that regarding that, the Americans are actually even looking into it, but yet there's not enough compelling reason to go and start investigating it, to get our nearest allies doing the exact thing. Like, it does not make sense at all.
And look at now the interest that the scientific and academic community is taking on this topic. I mean, you have obviously Avi Loeb with the Galileo project. You have Dr. Gary Nolan out of Stanford, who just had the inaugural Sol Foundation symposium last year. You have Diana Walsh-Pasulka has now just started a curriculum on UAP, so an educational curriculum on the topic. And there are other educational institutions that are following suit as well. So why Australia is always so late to the party on particularly on this topic is mind-boggling and perplexing. And I think we now know that Australia has finally entered the ring and is engaged on this topic by way of the Five Eyes Forum on UAP. To what degree their level of interest will be sustained or if it will wane, who knows? That's what I'm trying to continue to get answers to through FOIA and inquiries to the Minister for Defence and the Royal Australian Air Force and Australian Department of Defence as well. So it'll be interesting to see where the topic goes for Australia in 2024.
Yeah, like you mentioned before too, like getting in touch with members of Parliament there, and I think it was probably about 6 months ago that I got in touch with you to help me write out a whole segment for Reason there, for trying to send them to the members of Parliament there. I had a crack at them. I went pretty much from all the way from Gold Coast all the way up the whole east coast of Queensland, basically hitting up every single member of Parliament there. I got mostly automated responses. I had a couple of administrations going, "Hey, yep, look, we're sending it through. You might get a response or not." And that was basically it. Got nothing.
Yeah,
it is extremely frustrating. Like the fact that you're trying to raise something, a concern, especially like when you the whole links and evidence that we try to present to them there. Like we presented Grush's testimonies there, had Ross Coulthard in there as well. Some of his links there, so they can actually look into the evidence there, what's being presented to the US Congress and all sorts of stuff, and yet they still blatantly ignored the whole attempt to contact them in regards to that. And it's extremely frustrating.
I feel your pain, brother, because it's a game of consistent persistence. You just have to stay at it, and it's not just members of parliament and senators. It's also the news media. Like there was a number of us, when Ross Coulthart did a wonderful in-person Q&A event in Melbourne in August of last year, and he did one in Sydney in October of last year. I was fortunate to attend both of them. At the Melbourne event, he challenged people in the audience that take this topic seriously to write to the Australian legacy media, the ABC, the SBS, the 7, 9, 10, and demand that they start taking this topic seriously and asking some hard questions of those that are in positions of leadership and authority in the Australian Department of Defence. Because when you turn on Sunrise in the morning or the Today Show or those brekkie shows, they often have some pretty significant figures on for interviews and commentary. They'll often have Albanese, our Prime Minister, on Sunrise or Today. They'll have the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Richard Marles. They'll have politicians on. So they're in a unique position to ask questions of those individuals about the UAP topic. Well, why is Australia not taking the UAP topics seriously? What does the Australian Department of Defence consider constitutes a compelling reason that would warrant it to review its position on UAP? These are questions that we as private citizens shouldn't only be asking. It's also those that have a unique and large platform. They should be asking these questions as well. So I've had this gripe with the Australian legacy media for a while now, is that they're just not getting off their ass and exercising a shred of journalistic due diligence on this topic. They're simply just copy and paste journalism. When something significant happens in the United States, like David Grush, they'll cover it, but they'll have an air of stigma and ridicule about it. And there was a classic example of this only last month. The Today Show had they were talking about the IC, the Intelligence Community Inspector General's SCIF meeting that he was having with members of the House Oversight Committee in the United States. And the Today Show, the two presenters had an astrophysicist on who happened to be Matt Agnew. And anyone that knows Matt Agnew will know that he is Australia's Bachelor, the Bachelor. So they're having the Bachelor come on and provide some commentary about what's going on in the United States and David Grush. And when he can't even articulate correctly or appropriately characterize David Grush's testimony. He mischaracterized David Grush altogether and said that a whistleblower testified in July of last year and said, "Oh yeah, I heard a friend of mine or this guy's uncle told me that there's a crash retrieval and reverse engineering team." Completely mischaracterizes David Grush's testimony altogether. So I arced up at Today's Show and said, thanks for taking the topic seriously, but the next time you need some commentary that is of value to your listeners, please do better than getting the bloody Bachelor on, and seek out those in the community in Australia that are much more well versed on the topic, like a Bill Chalker, like a Keith Bassett, like a Ross Coulthart.
Yeah.
I'd be prepared to put my hand up. Anyone that knows a little bit more than the Bachelor and follows this topic much more diligently than someone that's coming on for clicks and ratings.
Yeah, he's probably just a better looking bloke to go and be the forefront for a UFO topic. That's probably about it.
And look, I no, and I'm not. I've got nothing against Matt Agnew or his profession. As an astrophysicist, I know that actually only a few days ago there was a similar gripe that Dr. Gary Nolan had against another astrophysicist, essentially saying, I think an astrophysicist in the US referred to many of us that take the topic seriously as UFO enthusiasts, and Dr. Gary Nolan basically said, well, why is it that astrophysicists always feel compelled to talk about the UAP topic when they actually know very little about it? So yeah, that was my gripe with the media in 2023, and obviously at the end of last year. So hopefully we see a changing of the guard though this year with some more reporters that put some well-sourced, well-researched and thought-provoking commentary and some articles that really challenges Australia's lack of interest in the topic to date.
Yeah. Which actually sort of brings me to a question or more of a suggestion. Something I've been thinking about for a while now is obviously because Australia's lack of interest in the whole topic at all. I sort of feel like it's time to actually get in the front doorsteps and start protesting, get the whole UFO community together and actually, you know, pitchforks and torches and whatnot and get out there and go, "Look, you guys need to go pull your fingers out. We're serious about this. This shit's
Yep.
been going on for way too long. We've been lied to, we've been pushed back, pushed into the shadows, and yet we're doing nothing. Yet the whole rest of the world is having a crack at this. I think it's time we need to have a go."
Look, you exercise your right to peaceful protest if you want. Yeah, if you want
Yeah,
to get down to Canberra and you've got a placard, or even, I mean, look at in the United States some of the wonderful reporting that's coming out of the gentleman by the name of Matt Laslo. He's waiting in the halls of Capitol Hill in Congress, waiting for these congressmen and women to come out of a meeting or go to a meeting, and he'll catch them on the fly and ask them some questions and record it. And he is getting a lot of wonderful sound bites and commentary, and we're better understanding the positions of these men and women in U.S. Congress because someone like a Matt Laslo is taking it upon himself as a journalist and someone that's obviously wanting, seeking answers to questions that are important to him and many of us in the community. That's an example of some of the things that you could do if you are a journalist. You could take that upon yourself, even if you're not a journalist. There's nothing stopping you attending, question time at Parliament,
yeah,
and you could cause a bit of a peaceful ruckus there if you wanted to get a topic that is important to you noticed, or even just, there are a number of ways that you can try and engage members of Parliament and those in government. That's peaceful process. Peaceful protest is just one avenue. If you're not having any success with getting on the blower or writing a letter or sending a tweet or the snail mail approach, that sort of stuff, if that's not working for you, explore other avenues as well. And trying to get them to answer a couple questions face to face, if you're able to get a few minutes with them, however you're able to get in front of them, go for it. It's worth a shot.
yeah. Well, I'd like to use you as an example there of like how your paper trail's going there with the responses there. Like we're getting bugger all really. So I think it's about that time there where we actually need to just start really put the hammer down and you know get some
Yeah.
banners out there and get some people. And I'm thinking I'll obviously run a bit more by off air there and see if you were keen to sort of help me organise it. But
I'll be the
obviously,
first one to put my hand up and say anything that
yep,
can. I'll certainly do whatever I can, whenever I can, to advocate for the topic and try and engage those in positions of leadership in government. So,
yeah,
if that's an avenue that you want to explore, I'll certainly be there to
I'm
back you. And
sweet.
because you're right, it is very frustrating when you put a lot of time, energy, and effort to uh, you know stating your case in an email or a letter, and then people don't even bother to respond,
Acknowledge it. Yeah,
or they do respond with a very pithy 1 or 2 line sentence, which is unfortunately very common for me when I religiously try and reach out to the Department of Defense media team and the Deputy Prime Minister's media team. There's a media email address you can seek an official comment from them on, and most times they won't even bother responding, and when they do, it's just a pithy comment that doesn't really even answer your question. So,
yeah.
if that's a degree of activism that you want to take it to, I'm there with you the whole way.
Yeah, sweet. That's awesome. Because like I'm thinking, we'll get everyone in the areas there. Go to your capital cities, or even if it's too far for you to go to your local members of parliament's front door. Basically, just trying to get a whole bunch of activists worldwide, even if we can, try and get that going. I don't know, see how far we get, but we'd like to try and sit tight with home first, and get Australia on the bandwagon at least. Start small, and then try and reach
Yeah.
out to the rest of the world there, see if people are going to back us up and start creating their own peaceful protests and get their own we want the truth out there. Basically, that's you
Yeah,
know
I don't think we don't want to go the route of going to art galleries and and throwing red paint on valuable artwork. But I certainly think there is there is value in coordinating, groups of people, whether it be in Canberra or at a state level. And it doesn't have to be huge groups; it can just be small groups that you
Yeah.
go to your local MP's office and try and schedule a meeting, a sit-down meeting with the MP. If you can't, then you can take placards and you can make your case heard by peacefully protesting out the front of their registered office. There's a lot of things that you can do to try and get people to take notice. And to Scottish debunker's point, the fact that Senator Wish Wilson has not had his questions on notice factually and accurately answered back in July of last year, that's something that you could raise as a concern point, a concerning talking point with your local MP or a senator, saying, look, what confidence do I as a taxpayer have that my government is going to address issues that are important to me if it can't even respond to a senator's question correctly on this particular topic that's important. I mean, that opens up the floodgates for so many other people to question, are they getting sincere, genuine answers to questions that are important to them, and a whole slew of other topics as well. So it could open up the floodgates. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think there is. I certainly think there is value in a coordinated approach to try and get in front of the faces of folks in positions of, folks in those that we elect in positions of leadership in government.
Yeah. I think it's about time. So, it's been far too long now. We've just been, yeah, like I said, been thrown in the shadows. Everyone's been denied absolutely everything there. Basically, like you said before, like we just want some sort of acknowledgement from the Australian government, some sort of interaction or response, and something there to say, "Hey, look, all right, we are taking this seriously. If we have to, we'll try and even get back into reporting and stuff like that." I've got things out there. I'm trying to get I've got things I can see from work, right, that are flying around, and I want to know what the hell they are. Nothing shows up on the flight radars, anything like that. I can call up the Australian Defence Force, but they're not going to give me any answers there because they'll be like, "Well, who are you? What do you want? What do you know?" They're just going to go, "No, we can't tell you anything because blah blah blah, national security
They,
bullshit."
they, they're going to
And
tell you to call the cops because that's the current policy. The policy is, when they cancelled the unusual aerial sightings policy, when they washed their hands clean of UAP UFO in 1996 and formally cancelled their policy a number of years later, the policy now is if a member of the general public or the Defence Force observes something in the sky that they can't readily identify or reconcile, if they see a UAP, call the cops or reach out to your civilian UFO organization, your MUFON, UFOs, the other, there's also other now technological mechanisms you can use. Enigma Labs has an app that you can use for reporting on your tablet or your smartphone. I don't know if that's isolated just to the United States, though. I'm not too sure on that. But that's the current position of the Royal Australian Air Force, Australian Department of Defence. If you see something, yeah, feel free to say something, but call the cops, which is far from satisfactory.
yeah, because obviously I want to know what the hell they are. They fly around for hours. They look like planes, but obviously there's no navigation lights. There's nothing that I can sort of identify to go, well, okay, it is a plane. Besides the fact that it's lights, it might be landing lights.
Yeah,
So then I'm like, well, okay, they're obviously not doing the correct flight controls, having navigation lights that should be saying, hey, yes, I am a plane. Whether or not Brisbane knows, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things like, do I bring up the control radar rooms there, the control towers there and go, hey, look, can you guys see this? Or has something been reported from your end? They're going, hey, look, we've got things in the airspace here. It's just so many different avenues here where you want to find out what the answers are. It's like whether or not they know about it or not, because like obviously the national security thing there with us is the defense force know that they're there because from their radars, and do they have any interest to go? Well, we don't know what they are. Are they going to take action? What's their response to that? that's what we sort of want. Like, if there is things flying around in their airspace and people are seeing these things, what is their response and their action to it?
Yeah. And look, if once you've done your homework, like there are things that I've never had my own sighting, but I say to people that have, I ask them, try and ask as many questions as I can. Did you record the weather conditions, the time of day it was? Did you look on a flight tracker service, one of those commercially available flight radars, so you can start to go through your checklist of, we'll start with a prosaic explanation and kind of go from there. And if there were no planes being tracked and available on a flight radar service that you can access in the area, then, and you still don't know what it is, it emits no sound, no signs of propulsion, not all, but even if it's just one of the 5 observables, I think that's worthy of saying, well, look, this is something that needs to be taken seriously, because what if it was, even if it wasn't foreign adversarial system, even if it was a drone, a prosumer or consumer drone, if that was to get in and it was operating in airspace that had commercial traffic or military traffic or general aviation traffic, and that's just some kid in the backyard that's flying something like that, then that's a huge safety of flight risk in itself. If that gets into the flight path of a plane, then you've got a huge issue. So, I mean, obviously drones are a whole issue in and of themselves, but it's the things that we are truly anomalous that we want to get answers on. And if you see something that you can't readily identify and reconcile, it truly puzzles you, and you've done your homework to try and cross off the list what it isn't, what it could be, but it isn't. Then there should be a mechanism in place. There should be some sensible say something reporting mechanism in place that affords you, as a concerned member of the public, to tell the authorities what you've seen and ask that it be investigated, because they've done it in the past, and that was the whole unusual aerial sightings policy. They had reporting mechanisms in place, and we no longer live in 1996. We live in 2024. We live in a very different world where a lot of things have happened in the last number of years that have led intelligent men and women in Congress and former officials of the US Department of Defense to come out and say that UAP is a real problem. It's a real issue that needs to be taken seriously, because and kudos to Ryan Graves and his team with the Americans for Safe Aerospace and the legislation that they have now endorsed, and that has currently now been proposed as a civil aviation UAP reporting bill. I think it's incredibly important that and significant that you've now got legislation that's being proposed that would require commercial pilots, and not just pilots, but flight attendants, aviation personnel, that if they see a UAP, certainly pilots, they're required to report it. They have to report it to the FAA. So they're wanting to implement some sensible say something reporting mechanisms that get followed up on, get investigated, so we can understand what UAP are, gain a better understanding of the extent of UAP, and put into place some mitigating strategies that will prevent safety of flight issues like near misses, mid-air collisions, and so on. So I reached out to actually the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, Australia's kind of equivalent of the FAA, CASA, and after this kind of broke, there's a gentleman on X, Twitter, D. Dean Johnson, who does a lot of great reporting from a legislative perspective that comes out of the Congress in the United States, and he was one of the first to report on this new proposed civil aviation UAP reporting bill that's been put forward. And once I had, and USA Today picked up on it, and a number of other major news outlets in the States started reporting on it, that this proposed bill's been put forward. So I reached out to CASA and I said, I think I asked them the question, If this proposed bill is passed, what are the implications for CASA in the event that a US aircraft operating in Australian airspace that's either inbound or outbound encounters or observes a UAP and has to report it to the FAA? What are the implications for CASA? And two, in light of this legislation, if it does get passed, will CASA commit to conducting a formal review of its current position on UAP and consider implementing some comparable reporting and recording protocols? Because currently, not only does the Australian Department of Defence not have a UAP reporting mechanism in place, neither does the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, CASA, neither does Air Services Australia, that look after all of Australia's kind of air traffic control, and neither does the ATSB, the Air Traffic Safety Bureau. There is nothing across any of those agencies pertaining to UAP reporting and recording. And it's my hope that if this proposed legislation passes in the US, that you would think that other countries around the world will start to take notice from a civil aviation perspective. And it's my hope that CASA get off their ass and take it seriously as well. Unfortunately, they're very much pegged to the Australian Department of Defence. What the Australian Department of Defence does, they'll kind of follow suit. So I think if the defence in Australia started implementing some reporting protocols, I think you would see that flow onto the civil aviation side as well. So again, 2024, interesting to see what happens. I mean, and this is all of this stuff that we're talking about is completely separate from the David Grush stuff. All of that stuff that's taking place that is so incredibly intriguing and interesting that Congress is trying to get to the bottom of. Australia is not even ready to acknowledge any of the stuff that David Grush is claiming or making allegations on. They haven't even acknowledged that UAP is a thing. So they're not in a position to even go down the David Grush path if they haven't even taken on board that UAP is real. It's a true phenomenon. It's not isolated to the United States, and it's a national security and safety of flight risk. So we have to get over that hurdle first of having the Australian government take the topic seriously before it can be engaged on the David Grush and other whistleblower claims and allegations, which, if the rumors are true, there are some murmurs that there are other whistleblowers that may be coming forward this year. So and I think that's long overdue. I think poor old David Grush has been standing there on his own for quite a while. So it'd be great if there are some first-hand primary witnesses that can come out of the shadows and stand alongside David Grush, who's championed the effort thus far, and back up a lot of the stuff that David Grush has said. So that's why I say it's a very interesting year ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I hope that Australia does come along those lines there. But it's we mentioned this last time we spoke too. I sort of feel like America has got a lot of power here in control of how much is actually being released, especially from other countries, and that we have no reason to be holding back so much, what we've been talking about. But yet there seems to be a power at play here, and I'm suspecting America is saying, "Hey, like we're taking control of this. You guys stand back and you just deny everything that you know." And it seems the same way as too, like the UK, New Zealand, so the same. Every other country around the world is sort of holding back a bit, going, "We're not really going to release anything." I think it was only Mexico and maybe a little bit of Brazil as well. It might be trying to expose a little bit here or there. It depends on if the Mexican aliens were even real or not. It's something's going on here. Like, what's the hell is going on? Why can't countries just come forward with whatever the hell they know? That's the big question that needs to be asked here. Like, why is there such a big holdback?
Why they're being so silent about it? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the Five Eyes Forum on UAP in May of last year is a game changer. So we now know that Australia, the UK, Canada, and New Zealand are engaged with the US on this topic. So what we learn about Australia's involvement, UK, Canada, New Zealand's involvement in the conversation going forward will be interesting. I suspect that one of the reasons why Australia is so... I think there's two sides to the coin. I think the Australian Department of Defence knows, which is, if you look at the defence services, you've got the Army, the Navy, the Royal Australian Air Force, and Defence Space Command. I suspect they know a hell of a lot less than the Australian intelligence community. So ASIO, ASIS, the Office of National Intelligence, the Defence Intelligence Organization, National Geospatial Organization for Australia. I suspect those intelligence communities know a lot more on UAP than the Defence Services do. So, yeah, and it's very hard to get anything from the intelligence community because they're all exempt from FOIA. But to Scott's point there, a few things he mentioned in the chat. Congress is now in a unique position where they came out of these 16 members, I think it was, of the House Oversight Committee that attended this Intelligence Community Inspector General's SCIF briefing. They came out of that briefing feeling like some of David Grush's claims had a lot more merit to them than they took them to have before. So if you listen to Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, she's now saying that we're ready to take the next steps and schedule some field hearings in the US, where I think they're going to they may have heard a couple of names of some defense contractors and facilities that may be involved in the UAP topic. And they're going to schedule some field hearings and go on down there and get a few witnesses and whistleblowers at those hearings. So it could be very, very interesting to see what happens out of the US Congress going forward, what their next steps are with a congressional hearing. Yeah. So,
which is good. That's fantastic. Look, I hope it does work out that way because we definitely need it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, quick thing. Anthony, let me just mute myself for a sec. My little one's crying for a sec. So can you entertain your audience just while I duck away for 30 seconds?
So there we go, mate. Yeah, that's all good, mate. Go for it.
I'll be back in 30. Sorry.
No worries, mate. You're right. Guys, look, I hope you enjoyed the show so far. Thanks for joining in. Loving the comments here, guys. It's fantastic. And sorry about my eyes. My eyes look really red. And I've been doing a bit of lawn mowing this afternoon. So I'm a bit killed from the sun here. And I've got a bit of, probably a bit of heat stroke and heat exhaustion going on. So my brain's a bit fried. So sorry, guys. We'll look a bit how you going. You probably see a little bit of sunburn there. But look, guys, I hope you're enjoying the show and the content so far. Thanks for so much for getting in the comments and, giving us a bit of a heads up of where you think we're going with all this sort of stuff. And I hope you're going to back me up on this, this protest here. I'm going to go and try and organise it in the next few months. Get this thing happening, Australia wide. Get it really known there, like, that we know the truth and we demand the truth. I think it's about time that we actually get there and, get some sort of involvement from governments. So look, I'm hoping you guys will back me up on that and share it out to everyone there, and we'll, we'll try and make something happen. I think it's very well overdue. But yeah, look, guys, it's it's a lot to take in when you think about it. It's an extremely frustrating topic, and like we know so much is out there, and especially people's claims and of their own encounters and experiences of what they're seeing and such like that. It's like, why deny all these people are coming forward with this sort of stuff, and yet still America, Australia, all these places worldwide still don't acknowledge these things flying around there. Not to mention like all the fake shit that's going through on social media as well. That's extremely frustrating. But regardless of them, all this crap, the legit people we're talking about, the people that are saying, they're genuine on seeing these sightings. So,
sorry,
mate, all good, sorted?
Yeah, she's all good. She just wanted her water, and it was a bit too far for her to reach. So, yeah, cheers.
Fair enough. No, it's good, mate. Look, I was just saying, like, it's about time we get governments or Australian government involved. People seeing these things worldwide, all these claims of sightings or objects and crafts and whatnot. I think it's well overdue that the world needs to get on this bandwagon. It's well and truly overdue.
I agree, and look, it's just so unfortunate that the start of the year kicked off with something that was so ridiculous, like the Miami aliens.
Yes,
that blew up for all the wrong reasons. And what I really take issue with, for anyone that exercises a shred of discernment and degree of skepticism on this topic, which we all should do, you should come to this topic with a healthy degree of skepticism, but also have an open mind and know that there are things that we don't fully understand, comprehend. There is anomalous activity that's going on with UAP, but it was just so blatantly obvious so quickly that what was proposed as Miami aliens at this mall with this massive police response was just was farcical. But unfortunately, so many of these in quotes, influencers and content creators on TikTok ran with it to kind of have their followers turn into a flash mob and just kind of share and repost and retweet. So what I find incredibly frustrating is when people out there that have a significant audience, they've got people that follow their work, but they're an influencer or a content creator. When they seek to profit from something that they know is demonstrably false or has been proven to be false, that's what I take big issue with, because it unfortunately it pulls us back down the rungs of the ladder a few steps on this topic. Yeah, it kind of, we're trying to break down the walls of stigma that have long played this topic and invite folks in the general populace that aren't as well versed on it as we are, that maybe are curious but don't have the same level of understanding, or we have not done the same level of homework that we have maybe on the topic, because we're invested in it. Something like the Miami aliens is not going to bode well with the masses who aren't engaged on this topic, when it's then shown to be a hoax and people continue to push it. So that was just a really unfortunate start to the year. But then, thankfully, not too long after that, you had TMZ's 3-part series, UFO Revolution, that was on Tubi. A little hard to get if you're in Australia, but for anyone that is, a lot of people put shit on Jeremy Corbell, and for good reason, at times with what they, the content that maybe, or the information that he puts out. But I mean, to his credit, he does have people sharing with him information that is legitimate military footage, so he's definitely getting content. And I think it was, and I don't think he's, he and George Knapp are pushing it as, oh, it's definitely alien. It's like, this is what we've received, this is what we're putting out there. But for those that haven't watched TMZ's 3-part series UFO Revolution, I actually found it really, really well done. I thought the production value was great. For those that don't know the history of the UFO topic, I think it's a really good primer. It's a really good intro to the topic, and kind of brings you up to speed relatively quickly over a couple of hours of where we're at on the topic. Obviously, it has a bit of a Jeremy Corbell focus to it, which I found to be interesting. I don't have any gripes with what Jeremy and George do. In fact, I think they do. They have helped elevate the conversation and advance the conversation, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. I think the topic is better off for having them involved rather than not, because we probably wouldn't, if it wasn't for Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, we probably wouldn't have the visual footage that's been released thus far that is legitimate military footage. We just don't know what it is. It could be prosaic, it might not be prosaic. If it's not prosaic, then that's, because it only takes one to be not prosaic and this to be game over. But even if it is prosaic, it's still something that's important, because if it's a foreign adversarial system and the US Department of Defense is caught sleeping at the wheel, that's a huge embarrassment for America, the strongest and greatest military power on the planet, and something that they need to get off their ass on and fix quick smart. So, so that would be the thing I say, that those that haven't watched the UFO Revolution series, I think it's a really good, well done, documentary that's worth watching, regardless of what you think of the people that are involved of it.
That's right. And look, I hope that, like, let's say like Jeremy and George, like, they are pushing hard, and like, I hope they're not just in it for the money. But obviously, as you said, like, they are coming up with results to a degree. It's not the greatest of results, but like, surely there's gonna be some point there where they can go, look, righto, we know some stuff. Let's just push it hard and just get it out there. Like, I'm sure everyone else is sick of it too. Like, if I could tell you what I know, of all these people are telling us, and share it with you, like, your mind would be blown. But that's all they wanted to keep doing, is like, if only I could tell you, I can't tell you something, but but I know these things, I know something. But it's like, well, stop hiding behind this we know stuff wall and just give us that information. Like, I know people are going to get in trouble because they're sharing stuff. Like obviously, I don't want to threaten people's lives and whatnot. But this is where they need to start coming into the Congress meetings there under that whistleblower act. They need to start coming through it there. Stop hiding behind this whole bullshit thing of like, I'm getting frustrated. I'm frustrating myself.
No, I
You know
feel
what I
your
mean.
frustration, and look, I would say that where you're at now is where I was. Probably, it was my mindset only changed really in the last 6 months, because if you personally haven't been involved with connecting with a source that's of significant value. It's easy to say, oh well, don't hide behind your sources, and the national security card, and you got to protect your sources. It's easy to say that, but unless you're actually in the position of a Jeremy Corbell or a Ross Coulthard or a George Knapp or others, where you firsthand know the risks that a source is subjecting themselves to, not just professionally but personally, risk of their well-being being impacted, their security and livelihood. I mean, if a source provides a Jeremy Corbell or a George Knapp or a Ross Coulthard with information that is incredibly sensitive, it's classified information, and that source was to be compromised, then that source is excuse my French, but up shit creek. They could go to jail for a very, very long time. So I respect the code of conduct that Ross Coulthard, Jeremy Corbell, and George Knapp adhere to religiously as investigative journalists. The golden rule is you do not reveal your source. You do everything you can to protect your source, even when they are not really protecting themselves, because sources could get into a hell of a lot of trouble. And if you burn a source, then your credibility as an investigative journalist, as someone that can procure information that can help drive the conversation forward, you're done. You're never going to be a trusted, asset again. No one is ever going to share information with you if you burn a source. So I've learned that firsthand, and I can't talk about that further. But until you're actually in the position where you know what risks a source is subjecting themselves to, it's easy to opine and comment that, well, just give us the information, I'm sure. And that's why I think a lot of people have jumped on Ross Coulthard's back about a UFO so massive that they had to build a building over it. I think Ross probably regrets that he ever mentioned that that UFO scenario, because of the heat and pushback that he's had as a result of that. But I get it. I know why he can't reveal any more information on that than he can, because if he does, he jeopardizes the safety, the security, the well-being, the welfare of his source. And if he does that, the topic takes a big hit, in my opinion. The general public will be privy to less information that's been drip-fed to us since 2017, and a source is never going to trust you again, and you're never going to have the same value that you once had as an investigative journalism. So I've come to appreciate that about Ross, George, and Jeremy. Others will disagree with me, and that's fine. But I respect the code that they adhere to as investigative journalists.
Like I fully understand all that, and like I understand why, like you're saying, like, but I sort of feel like these guys need to start helping to push them through, go through the right channels to go and break this open. Like I'm not saying Jeremy going start pointing names, or Ross start pointing names, going, "Hey, this guy told me." I'm not saying that. I'm saying help them push through the right channels, break it open like he's done with Grush. Same sort of concept. He's gone through the right channels. He's gone through what he can go and reveal and what he cannot. And now, obviously, because of the Whistleblower Testimony Act is there in place, there shouldn't be any fears of them
Yeah,
coming forward.
exactly.
So
And
push
look
them
how
for it. Like, they need to get up the ass and get them going.
and look how careful David Grush has been. Like to one of the
Yeah.
comments that came through in the chat, Glenn B. May says, and it's a good point. Are you aware of the Official Secrecy Act? Do you understand its implications, the ramifications of transgression? So if you are in non-compliance with the, if you break an oath, or if you are in non-compliance with the Official Secrecy Act, you're in some really hot water. So, and David Grush has been incredibly careful to not reveal any information that jeopardizes national security, sources and methods in the US. He's only saying what the DOPSA, the Defense Pre-Publication, so the formal review process has permitted to him to say. They've done their dotted the I's and crossed the T's and said, well, you can say this because it doesn't jeopardize national security, and it doesn't reveal any classified information that could, exploit, for foreign adversaries to exploit our vulnerabilities, sources and methods, capabilities, vulnerabilities, those sorts of things. So, David Grush is, a lot of people jump on him for saying, oh, you haven't brought any evidence to the table. Well, he can't bring any evidence to the table to the general public because it's all classified. And the folks that are in a position to know that information, thankfully, are the ones that are engaged in the topic in the US. The congressmen and women that are taking this topic seriously, obviously there are challenges with the House Oversight Committee still not having heard David Grush's classified testimony in its entirety because, one, they don't have the appropriate clearances to hear his testimony firsthand. And David Grush, I think there are questions about, does he hasn't got the appropriate one-time reading or clearance to divulge that information. But we should all be thankful that the folks in the US that are taking this topic seriously in government, on the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Intelligence's, the two Senate committees that are taking this topic seriously, we just haven't heard anything from them, nor probably will we, because the information that they're hearing is classified. So it's only through the drips and drabs of information that congressmen and women will share with the public, like they've been doing when they came out of the SCIF meeting with the ICIG. They got in front of the cameras straight away and they shared some comments with the US public in the world, but they didn't reveal any information that was classified that they heard in that SCIF meeting. So I think that's the best that we can expect going forward on this topic. Going forward, is that the more and more congressional hearings, the more and more field hearings there are, the more and more members of Congress that start asking questions and demanding answers from the intelligence community, there'll be drips and drabs of information that will then spill on over to the general public. But we're never going to, unfortunately, get all of the answers to the questions we have because the nature of the overclassification of the UAP topic. And that's the big problem. The overclassification of the UAP topic is what I think is the real threat to national security. The fact that you have House Oversight Committee members whose job it's their mission to expose waste, fraud, and abuse, and they can't investigate in full capacity the allegations that David Grush has come forward on with respect to waste, fraud, and abuse. Of who knows how many millions, billions, trillions of dollars that have been spent possibly on crash retrieval, these clandestine reverse engineering programs operating under SAPs and WUSAPs or whatever. It's the House Oversight Committee's job to expose waste, fraud, and abuse, and mitigate waste, fraud, and abuse going forward. How can they exercise their congressional mandate of oversight when they're not even allowed to see the classified information. And I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, it's a real break in their departments, isn't it? Like, how can you do anything? Can't achieve anything, and
So
that's
it's,
another frustrating
if
part too.
that's
I
not
remember seeing that.
if the challenge is that the House Oversight Committee is not evidence of a broken system, then I really don't know what is. But the overclassification of information in the US and the overclassification of the UAP topic is a huge problem, because everyone operates in these silos, these compartments. No one talks to one another. No wonder, I think there's probably a lot of disorganization and chaos within the three-letter agencies across the U.S. Department of Defense and Intelligence community, because everything is so siloed. So I think, and one of the things that the Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks wants to get on top of is, breaking down the walls of the problem that's associated with overclassification. And this is just one aspect of it. We're not even really talking about the really fascinating stuff of, biologics, non-human intelligence, downed UAP, crash retrieval teams, reverse engineering, all of the things that we're so fascinated by that would, strike. I mean, it just gets to your curiosity the moment you hear something like that. But there's all of these other important elements as well that I think, Congress is taking very seriously, in concert with the whole NHI discussion. It's about, well, Congress should know where taxpayer dollars are going, and they should have oversight over programs that, even if they need to be classified in nature, they still need to have a degree of oversight. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's
So a
that's
good
kind of where I'm
example of overclassification there was in a report there a while back where it was the shape of the
at.
objects were blacked out. And it's like,
I,
how is that even a
I
classification?
exactly. I only tweeted about that this afternoon. John Greenwald Jr.
Mm,
Received documents, heavily redacted documents, back in a FOIA request that, all of the common shapes of UAP were completely redacted. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean, how are you jeopardizing, sources and
national
methods,
security.
and exposing capabilities and vulnerabilities with common UAP shapes? I mean, give me a break. And that's just an example of where the overclassification is a massive problem. So
Yeah. It's absolutely stupid and frustrating. And again, like I was saying before, the mention of non-human intelligence and stuff like that, that should have broken the news like worldwide. And I sort of feel like that should have encouraged a lot of other countries then to come forward and go, hey, look, we know what we know here. And everything should have been just flooding out, but it didn't. No one gave a rat's ass about it. It took,
no,
I think
sadly.
it took us what, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before Australia even gone, oh yeah, look, we got some guy here claiming this, blah blah blah. It's absolutely bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's why I'm very interested to follow the progress of the Sol Foundation, because headed by Dr. Gary Nolan, because part of their mission is to engage other national governments on the UAP topic from a policy perspective. So not only just focusing on policy for the US, but engaging other governments on how it can create and implement policy on UAP in their respective countries. Now, if there's an opportunity, I'd love to see what engagement, if any, they have with Australia on that front. I think that would be a hard door to get an answer on if you come knocking. But I mean, it's be interesting nonetheless. So, and to Glenn's point, Glenn in your chat says, loving your chat, but you need an Australian context on your conversation also. So, and I agree. We can only go so far with talking about
Australian context.
an Australian context, because unfortunately, very little is happening at the moment in an Australian context. If the Australian government was, even a little bit more engaged on this topic and was being a bit more transparent with the Australian public, then there would be a lot more information that we could talk about. But the extent of what we know at the moment is that Australia is now engaged in the conversation, in light of the information that we now know it attended the Five Eyes Forum on UAP. That's all we know. So hopefully the conversation in an Australian context will increase, and broaden later this year when more information has come to light. So unfortunately, we're really guided by a lot of the stuff that comes out of the US. Now, certainly to Glenn's point, if he's talking about Australian-centric cases pertaining to UAP, UFOs, certainly, we haven't even really had a conversation about cases and other than Westall briefly at the start. But what I'm really talking about this evening is what drives me, what my passion is to try and advocate for the topic at a government level and at a national defense level. And as challenging as that effort is, I'll certainly continue to carry the torch and be happy to stand along folks that want to carry it as well. So, like you said, with an idea for an activist event, but I don't want to own the conversation. If there's anything else you want to talk about, maybe to Glenn's point, that might be more Australian context related. If it's case wise, happy to go down that path.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not much more I want to go on with Australian side of things besides where we're sort of really going with it. Because yeah, as you're saying, everything's so related to US, and that's like I was saying before. Like the frustrating part is we're so reliant on the US, and obviously, we're trying to figure out where we are going with Australians' involvement or lack of, to put in context. But I was like, next question I was going to ask you is now Kirkpatrick's out of the picture. Where do you think people are going to go with Aero, and what we might get out of this new mob?
Well, I would say, is he out of the picture? If you read the latest article from the Liberation Times,
no, I haven't.
Which is Christopher Sharp's publication. I actually read it only today, and I'll read you a quote. Here we go.
So he might be sitting a bit on the sidelines or something, eh?
Yeah. So this was, So Christopher Sharp engaged Susan Goff, who's kind of like the U.S. Pentagon spokesperson on UFO. And Liberation Times reported the RO is notably currently without a director, which is true. We know that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick retired in December of last year. He closed up shop as director. Now you've got an acting director in Timothy Phillips, leading up R until they install a new full-time replacement to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. But the Liberation Times goes on to say the RO is notably currently without a director following the departure of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. But Goff, being Susan Goff, did confirm that the former director will continue his involvement as an unpaid consultant. The quote from Susan Goff is, "The department will continue to leverage Dr. Kirkpatrick's expertise as needed and available as an unpaid consultant." So isn't that interesting that he still has?
Well, I wouldn't really pay for his expertise as it is, because he's buggered up a few little investigations. We had that ball object there that was over in Iran or something like that. I think there was a while back there, and thinking it was the object moving, but it's a bit of was it the parallax effect? I can't even think what the term is now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the cases that RO has been able to resolve. It's interesting to see what cases they have resolved, but unfortunately, they haven't published many of them. They've said that they've been able to resolve as many as they have, but they've only published such a small number on their website. Why is it taking RO so long to get information out to the public on the topic? I mean, if you look at their Twitter feed or X, there's only one post from RO, and that was back in July of 2022. So they obviously still have no communication strategy in place. There's no engagement whatsoever with the general public on this topic. And I mean, how long did it take them to get a pretty basic looking website up and running that is void of a lot of meaningful, valuable content? I mean, there's some stuff on there, but I would say that I hope that whoever comes in as Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's replacement is a little bit more ambitious, is a little bit more aggressive, is a little bit more proactive than reactive on the topic, because I hate to say it, whenever I saw Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick speak in public, at face value, from an observation perspective, it sounded like he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be in the job. He didn't want to do it. He was just doing it to you know, get get his retirement fund when he retired.
Pretty well.
I mean, I question how seriously Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick wanted to get to the bottom of what UAP are. So I really hope that whoever comes in and replaces him is a breath of fresh air, and maybe it turns Ara around. But I won't hold my breath because all we've seen to date from Aro is Project Blue Book 2.0. It's its history's repeated itself.
Look, honestly, I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but I reckon Mick West. I vote Mick West in for the new, new head of Aero.
Look,
I know a few people don't like him, but he's actually pretty onto it.
Irrespective of what you think of Mick West, and look, I think he does. He does. He's clearly got the skill set to understand,
Physics and
math,
stuff
technology,
like
what he's looking at, optics, and so on. I think he is intelligent, and I think he does good work in debunking cases that clearly are debunkable. There are a few things that I think he's probably a little bit closed-minded on. Namely, gimbal is a good example. I think there are some really great researchers, in the space, and Scott, will attest to that. There are some good folks that are doing some really good work. Scott being one of them, along with others on gimbal and other cases that still have a lot of unanswered questions. And I think what irks people or rubs people the wrong way with Mick West is maybe it's being a Brit, the way that he communicates. It can be a little bit sometimes abrupt and come off and rub people the wrong way. But I don't disagree with you. I think someone of that caliber that comes at it from, because we all should have a skeptical mind,
critical analysis. It needs it.
Yeah, critical and follow the data, not just select data though. That's the thing that I probably would push back a little bit on Mick West, is that gimbal being a classic example where he'll take into account the FLIR footage, but he won't take into account. He'll try and discredit gimbal on the FLIR footage alone, and not take into account the other supporting evidence, like the communication between the pilots, radar footage that we've never seen the light of day on. You have, and this is what I'm also critical of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I believe that you can't just be selective on the data. You have to look at all of the data and follow it wherever it leads. And I think that is where Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick has probably failed to meet people's expectations. Certainly those that have come forward to Aro with their testimony of the Maelstrom incident of 1967. You've got other folks that have shared their testimony to Aro of UAP impacting or impacting nuclear facilities and nuclear assets. So I think there are some real question marks over, was Aro under Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's lead taking into account all of the data, or just being selective on the data that confirmed their bias, confirmation bias? So that's why I hope and pray that whoever replaces Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is a little bit more open-minded, is a little bit more ambitious, and is a little bit more aggressive and proactive to chase down all the data, and not just reach a conclusion on select data, because that's the trap that you can fall into.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, like, if Mick West was given the resources there to really investigate into it properly, I sort of feel like he would do a reasonably good job at it. But it also depends on, like, how much was Kirkpatrick and the rest of the Aero team read into to be able to go and investigate into things properly. Like, that's the question there. Like, how far could they even investigate into something that's going to?
I mean, in April of last year, Aro I believe, only had its Title 10 authority. It didn't have Title 50 authority, which would allow it to dig deeper and get information from other agencies that was classified in nature. So, did that kind of were they hamstrung for quite a while, not having that full Title of 50 authority? I don't know, but I think we certainly the perceived there's a perceived lack of trust certainly in ARO. ARO has some real it's faced a huge reputational risk, I think, from Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick being at the helm. So I hope that whoever they install as his replacement can restore some public trust and restore the public's faith in that ARO will be much more transparent with its findings. Because let's be honest, ARO has really not put out a lot of information, and they're now been going for how many years? A bit over, coming up on 2 years, if not a bit over 2 years. So, I think the public have greater expectations on the transparency side of things with ARO, and that's clearly evident because you've got whistleblowers that are being referred to the IG. The ICIG, people are saying, don't go to ARO because they're not going to take your claims and allegations seriously. They're not going to exercise their due diligence and go down the rabbit holes that need to be followed to get to the bottom of these these crash retrieval and reverse engineering claims. And so that's why I think a lot of whistleblowers have ended up going to the Inspector General, because there's a lack of trust that ARO is going to do its homework and do its due diligence.
It sort of makes it feel like maybe ARO is just a forefront there just to appease the public, saying, hey, yeah, look, we're looking into it, but we're not really going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
just to put that out there. It's just because, like you're saying, like how much has failed from ARO to go and present itself there, and just anything they seem to be doing at the moment with regarding to any release of information, it just seems to be like it's half-assed.
No, well, look, where's volume 1 of the historical cases that Sean Kirkpatrick said he was, planning to get out before he left?
Wasn't he?
Yeah, going back to 1948, I think volume 1 and 2, there's going to be historical cases, analysis and review, and then you've got a lot of the modern stuff. I think it was 2 volumes. Where's volume 1? He said it was going to be released before he left ARO. We're still waiting on it, So just time and time again, it's the same old stuff that delays, lack of information, lack of transparency. It just does not bode well for public trust. And that's what ARO has, a real credibility issue at the moment because of those things, unfortunately, because of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I think was ARO set up to fail from day one? Quite possibly, because you got someone like his former boss, Ronald Moultrie, who's, he and Scott Bray testified before Congress in May of 2022 and brought very, very little to the table. Ronald Moultrie was the one that signed ARO's checks initially. And, in April of last year, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said he had a strategic plan that he had drafted ready to go, and it was waiting to be signed off by Ronald Moultrie. So, Ronald Moultrie should be hauled over the hot coals and really questioned on, well, why did it take so long under your leadership? And for Kirkpatrick as your direct report, why did it take you so long to sign off on a website? Why did it take you so long to sign off on a strategic plan for ARO? Why is it taking you so long to sign off on a communication strategy, which there is still none for ARO? So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked of those that, the gatekeepers, if you will, in the Pentagon. And I think Ronald Moultrie has a hell of a lot to answer for ARO's performance.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that need to be taken up for accountability on the lack of everything that's been promised to us, that sort of regard. Which is it's frustrating. You know, it's people all these promises, the world's like especially the UFO community in general, all these promises. Like we've been getting promises all these years, all these decades, and still nothing is getting presented.
No, and
And
I've
yet, you know,
learned.
we're almost on a
Yeah,
breakthrough, and yet still nothing is there. It's like just at the bottleneck there, and like you know, people are claiming, you know, this year's going to be amazing, or everything's going to be released this year or next year, you know. But it's like we've been hearing that for years. Like you know, everyone's tired of it.
it's a hard pill to swallow, but I've learnt to manage my expectations. I think
Yeah, I
going
don't
in,
expect much at all.
yeah, I mean, I think going in, a lot of people had high hopes and high expectations for ARO because they've been pushing so hard for there to be an investigatory body on UAP in the US, you know, above and beyond. You know, the UAP task force was temporary, then you had AIMSOG, which was a farce, and then ARO, and you know, how many naming convention iterations did ARA go through? At one point, it was ASRO, then it was Astro, and then they landed on
Yeah,
ARO. So you know, people had some really genuine um, expectations for ARO to deliver, and I think it's just been a miserable disappointment. So I suspect a lot of others have now learnt the hard way to manage our expectations. And when there is something exciting on the horizon, don't get too excited about it.
yeah.
Manage your expectations is what I would say.
That's it, and that's where, like, everyone's so, like, reliant on Ross and Jeremy to be going through there, pushing through this information and breakthroughs, but
Yeah.
yet we're still getting nothing much out of them either, and that's where I think a lot of people that's where you're saying, like, you know, people they're getting the hate for it, 'cause, you know, they're our, what would you call them? The forefront, you know, the front line, basically.
Well, they've developed a network of trusted sources. You know, a lot of people entrust Jeremy, George, Ross with their information because they know that they're never at risk of being exposed as the source. To what extent, how much information is being revealed to those guys that then they have to try and corroborate, because they're not just hearing it from one person. They've got to corroborate it across a number of different sources
Mm,
before they can report on it, if they're allowed to report on it. If it's something that uh, you know they're permitted to share publicly, and that goes back to the sources and methods and
yeah.
capabilities, vulnerabilities we talked about before. But um, I mean, again, comes back to what we kind of heard last year, and with Carl Nell, that popped out of nowhere as someone that was backing a lot of David Grush's claims, and then for him to appear kind of out of the blue at the Sol Foundation as a speaker with a controlled disclosure plan. I mean, that's something that no one had kind of ever anticipated before until we heard about it through people that attended the Sol Foundation. So that's what I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful for in 2024 that there are more whistleblowers and primary witnesses
Mm,
that come forward, whether that's publicly to the same degree that David Grush has. Fantastic. I think that if you have more witnesses and whistleblowers that can stand alongside Grush, that corroborate the claims being made across between David Grush and maybe what these whistleblowers are going to bring forward, great. I think that helps continue to move the conversation. And, I think if there is continued obfuscation and lack of transparency from the US Department of Defense, I think you're going to get probably more leaks like the leaks that we've seen thus far that Jeremy Corbell has put out. Now, what's frustrating is the quality of those leaks. It ain't that great.
no,
The quality of the footage that we've all seen to date. Tic Tac, Tic Tac, Gimbal, Go Fast, the Mosul Orb, the jellyfish, the chandelier. I mean, if you believe what, and think of him what you will, Hal Puthoff has said in an interview with Eric Weinstein and Jesse Michaels that the US government has, high fidelity, high quality data that's 4K
hmm
comparable, and we're seeing scraps of footage that
infrared
is
shit.
we're seeing black and white grainy footage that's been dumbed down in resolution, so it's harder to make out anything. It's not clear. There's no it's poor resolution. You can't discern a whole lot from the videos that have been made publicly available today. Now, to credit to many folks are certainly doing their due diligence and trying, like Scott that was here before. There's another gentleman, the Chola, and you've got Marek on Camp, who's done some great work on gimbal as well. So that there are people that are trying to do the best they can with what they have on what's been made available to the general public.
Yeah.
But at face value, it's not that impressive.
No.
So it would just be so great to finally see some high fidelity, high quality video footage or imagery that can really help move the needle on the topic. But then, of course, you will have people that come forward and say, we live in the age of AI and deep fakes, and I mean, it's so easy for AI to kind of generate hyper realistic imagery that is actually almost getting to the point that it's hard to discern and differentiate what's real and what's AI generated. So, if people see something that looks realistic, are they going to question the authenticity of that anyway? So,
exactly.
I don't think video footage or imagery is ever going to be good enough for some folks too.
Yeah, and like a lot of my followers, I know they're going to understand. Like, I hate fake footage. People post them up on social media. It absolutely grinds my gears. But some people think, oh yeah, it's very artistic. It's supposed to be a representation of what people have possibly seen in that. But the problem is, though, they claim them as being real footage, and then it just does a massive discredit to the UFO community itself, saying,
I agree.
Look, this image here is real, but it's absolutely bullshit. It's fake.
Yep.
And it grinds my gears. It frustrates the crap out of me because people want to keep sharing. They actually believe it's real, and then takes away all credibility from people who have actual legitimate footage or sightings. That's the frustrating part. And I really hope people can stop sharing that crap around. But it's not going to happen.
I know, and it comes back to the point that I said before. Unfortunately, I think there are folks out there that just do seek to profit from content they know that is BS or it's fake or it's demonstrably false. There's always going to be, there will always be those that seek to profit and grift off of the topic, which is unfortunate. But if you're, and I think it's always worthwhile calling out those or challenging those that put out questionable content, and then just ignoring them, muting them, blocking them, whatever you need to do so it doesn't appear in your feed, and you can just get to what's important to you, which, if it's experience, a testimony, if it's footage that you've captured or family, friends, colleagues have captured that's interesting, or advocating for greater engagement at a government level, like I'm doing, or just engaging in conversation, respectful conversation on the topic. Do what's important to you, and try your best to separate the chaff from the weeds, and ignore what's not serving you or is of value.
Yeah, look. Honestly, like, the UFO topic is difficult in its own regard. Like, obviously, people are discrediting the people's claims of UFOs and that. People are trying to, put up fake stuff there, or people are trying to explain they've had an encounter, which is easily misidentified. It's one of those things, like, we're trying to get away from the whole crazy UFO community, and trying to bring out a reality that something is actually out there. But some people do massive discredit because they don't understand the technology that's available, or something they just don't understand that might have an explanation behind it. And it's not to say, like, not saying that they're the crazy people, but there are some people who are, will try and claim anything that is they see it as a UFO.
It's not just in this topic as well. I think it's true of a lot of other topics as well, and that's why I always try and stay as best I can as neutral, and follow follow the data and the facts where they lead. Not just that I'm able to uncover, but others as well. I mean, the great work that the SCU does, the Scientific Coalition on UAP. There are just those independent researchers that are doing great work as well, and just putting your your discernment hat on, and knowing that, if someone floods, if they flood social media with a video clip that just goes viral, don't be so quick to jump to a conclusion too quickly. Exercise some degree of skepticism. Do your due diligence so you can reach a conclusion that satisfies you as to whether or not this is something that's worth pursuing and learning more about, or just ignoring and moving on to something else. So that's served me well, to kind of come at things from a neutral perspective, and follow and follow the good work that others do as well, because there are plenty of folks in the community that are intelligent, that do some really good research, that I really respect and value the work that Keith Basterfield has done on this topic for many, many decades, along with Bill Chalker as well. I mean, there are guys that I really look to, on particularly when I was investigating the Westall case. Keith Basterfield did a lot of work on high-BAL, a high-altitude balloon, being a possible prosaic explanation, prosaic hypothesis for what was can be attributed to the Westall flying saucer. And that was a really interesting hypothesis that Keith put forward, and he did a lot of homework and research to bring that forward. He doesn't necessarily, he's not saying that's what it was, because he wasn't there on the day. He'll be the first one to tell you that. But I respect folks that are able to invest their time, energy, and effort and resources into pulling a thread that's important for them, for others to then critique their work and agree with it, disagree with it, challenge it, debate it, rather than I often don't reach a conclusion solely on my own. I'll engage others that have come before me or alongside with me doing their homework as well. So, yep.
Yeah, like I'll put myself in that sort of category as well. Like I help a lot of people there with the Australian UFO sightings page. Because people are seeing a lot of misidentified things like the lens flares, bugs, or planets. Stars, Starlink, for example, or ISS goes over. And look, I'm happy to help people there try and come up with a conclusion or a possible outcome of what their sighting might be. But you get a lot of people there that sort of get their knickers in a twist there because it's not something that they want it to be.
Yeah.
Which sort of it's frustrating to agree, because like then I cop the abuse going, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like I do this in my own free will. I'm not here to try and discredit people of what they're encountering. It's just more so I'm trying to help them identify or have some sort of explanation. Some people have had some amazing encounters that you can't explain, or you're seeing something that can't be explained. And that's not to give you any discredit at all. It's just saying, look, or to say it is an alien UFO craft. It's just to say it's something that's unknown, and we can't call it an alien UFO because we don't have enough evidence to really go and claim it. So
yeah, I agree.
It's
yep.
Yeah, particular and real what we try and do.
Because unfortunately, and that's I think why there was a rebranding of UFO to UAP, because the general populace, when they hear UFO, they automatically associate it with alien, extraterrestrial, which we know that UAP can be a number of things. ET is one hypothesis. You've also got the fact that it could be a large part of UAP sightings is and probably will always be misidentification. Celestial bodies. You've got misidentifying aircraft. You have atmospheric phenomena. You've got other nation systems, but then you also have the more exotic hypotheses, like the extraterrestrial hypothesis or the non-human intelligence angle, which could include interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial, extraterrestrial, the future human hypothesis. I mean, there's a smorgasbord of menu items available when it comes to what UAP could be, and whether or not they're just one of those things on that list, I have no idea. I think it's an interesting question, but one should not be too quick to jump to the conclusion that if they see something in the sky they can't readily identify or reconcile, they shouldn't automatically jump to the conclusion that it's ET. You should start. That should be at the bottom of your list. You should start with every prosaic explanation you can think of and cross them off as you go. But unfortunately, you're right. Folks. A lot of folks will follow the herd if something goes viral online. The TikTok generation is a classic example, and the Miami aliens is a classic example of that. Well, they'll just follow the herd and they'll follow the Pied Piper and believe what someone else has said is this must be aliens, when in actual fact there's a lot of homework and due diligence you need to do before you can reach that conclusion. So just exercise a degree of discernment that helps satisfy your curiosity as to what something is or isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think someone mentioned in the comments there too that there needs to be more information coming out from that Miami incident. I know they said there was a shooting of some sort, which I sort of feel like it would degree a lot of police response, being such a large area, and then that's surrounding the areas. The big claim that it's an alien, and some of the footage I've seen from the shadow objects or beings, it's really given no credibility to the claim of being alien.
And look at the day and age that we live in as well. The United States, active shooter scenario, mass panic. You would have a massive police response to an active shooter scenario. So I suspect just the environment and just the tense environment that a lot of folks live in the United States, with mass shootings being a daily occurrence. It doesn't surprise me that if there was some, we don't know the full extent as to what, there was fireworks being set off. Could they have been misidentified as, from an active shooter? You've got a massive brawl or fight that broke out. You have unruly patrons from a Margaritaville, that are causing ruckus. So there are a whole lot of unanswered questions as to why that massive response was justified. But again, in the day and age we live in active shooter scenarios in the United States, it didn't surprise me that was something that we were seeing. Miami aliens was the furthest thing from my mind when I was seeing that splashed across the TV.
But plus, where's all the CCTV footage? People got the phones. I'm sure. I know that people are trying to run away.
Exactly.
Or something.
Exactly.
There's got to be some sort of camera footage.
Yeah. So people just need to, I think, be a little bit more skeptical and exercise a little bit more discernment rather than following the herd, following the Pied Piper, and don't hate me for saying it, but an effort to be less gullible and just accept something as reality and as true, when point in fact, that's not how you should reach a conclusion. You should, go through a rigorous process of being able to validate, corroborate, information from on the ground and different sources. So that's, and it's just unfortunate that there are people on social media that will take advantage of that when something goes viral, because in the TikTok age, you get remunerated, you get rewarded, you're monetized based on the number of views that you get on your channel, like YouTube monetization is, but TikTok is a very different beast that I'm not really fully engaged on. But I think that's what was happening. I think that you had a lot of people with channels on TikTok with big audiences. They saw it as a cash cow. They went to town trying to make a buck out of it, and that's really unfortunate and does a disservice to the UAP community and those that take it seriously and want to further the conversation and get real answers to questions that are important to them. So that's where I kind of sit.
But in saying that too, though, you got to keep an open mind that the possibility could have been there, that the aliens were there, and this could be a massive government cover-up. That's
100%. And look, and absolutely, but show us some data that will suggest that as a plausible as a plausible explanation. And we never saw any of it. We saw, footage that had been purposely manipulated. We had, someone coming out with these claims that this is what they saw, and then they backtracked and said, I wasn't even in Miami. But folks on the TikTok side, they'll ignore evidence to the contrary that it was just a hoax or some tomfoolery. It really took a life of its own, unfortunately, and that's where what I fear is a big risk for the UAP community is if you have some footage that is leaked, that and to a degree, the jellyfish is an example of that. There are a lot of people that, holy crap, it's that's something that is completely alien looking to me, so it must be alien. But I think there's a few hoops that you need to jump through in order to reach that conclusion. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions, and that's what we should all be doing. You should never be fearful to ask questions and seek answers to those questions that are important to you. So anyway, each to their own. Each has their own process. But I anytime I see any footage that gets leaked or put out there, I always look at it from a very skeptical lens, but still keeping an open mind and not relying on just video footage or photographic imagery alone. There's all other things that go into it. Provenance. How did it come into existence? What happened pre, during, post event? Which are all things that should be asked of anyone. That anytime I am talking to someone, and to a degree, it was the folks that I met at the witness reunion event for the Westall incident. I kind of pre, during, post. I try and get a whole picture as to, be able to put myself in their shoes and take a bit of a walk around for a while. To really try and appreciate what they went through, not just in the moment, but in the preceding the event, leading up to it, and post as well. So everyone has their own process, but that's what's important to me. And I try and exercise as much discernment as I can, and but also rely on others to provide input and commentary that's important as well.
Yeah, and that's one of my big things too with the Australian UFO sightings page. That when people want to go and share their experiences there, like one of our key requirements for posting to the page is like it has to have a date, a time and place, the location,
precisely.
and then you got to relive the whole. We expect you to relive your whole experience. Like, what did the object do? Which way was it traveling? What did it look like? We want that. We want to be able to witness it how you witnessed it. Live in your shoes, like you said. And we want to be able to.
You can never have too much information. The more information you're able to collect on
people just want to go and go, oh, I see something weird, take a photo, go, oh, this is what I saw over here, and blah blah blah, and that's it. It's like, well, okay, what's the rest of it do? Like, why are you claiming this as a UFO? And the more information that people can provide for their footage and claims of a suspected UFO or a UAP is detailed. It gives you more credibility to your encounter.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is what
100% agree.
One of the things I like having people on the show here, because people will talk about their experiences that has the time and location, and they're reliving their story. And hopefully, when people relive their stories and you're getting that sort of detail there, other people get encouraged in talking more about their own encounters and stuff, which then helps the UFO community even more because people want to keep talking about it.
Yep.
So,
100%.
the more people talk about it, the better it's going to be outcome, hopefully, for the future.
And you can ask questions and do it in a way that's respectful of the individual that's sharing their experience. It's not about me believing you or not believing you. It's about presenting the information that was available to you during pre-post, and me digesting that information and drawing my own conclusions as to, wow, that sounds like it was really something that was quite extraordinary. If there's opportunities for you to the individual that experienced that event to dig further or try and seek information from other individuals that may have also experienced the same thing, great. So it's not my experience, it's their experience, but I can certainly try and ask questions that will help me better assess to my own satisfaction what it is they're sharing with me, so I can draw my own conclusions. It's not about if I believe you or if I don't believe you. I've had many conversations with folks that have seen something that they can't explain. It's not my job to judge what they've experienced. I can just all I can do is hear what they've got to say, and then what I do with that information is entirely up to me. It's not my job to then make a recommendation or say I believe you, I don't believe you. I think thank you for sharing that with me. If it's important to you, be great if you could, seek more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're just going back through the comments here. Oh, Triffin's there joined the comments. I don't know if he's still here now or not, but he's
I
asked the
may have
question.
to. I may have to run, my friend, shortly because I think my little one is calling for me again. So,
That's all right, mate. I wasn't going to hold you much longer there, mate, because just going to quickly throw a couple of questions at you. Triffin has jumped in there going, is there any particular footage evidence that has come out recently that people should pay attention to?
Look, not that I'm aware. I mean, look,
So.
it's great that folks are asking questions about the jellyfish footage that Jeremy Corbell's put out, about the chandelier footage. I mean, I think the gimbal footage is still one that is not fully resolved to this day. I mean, I think NASA tried to reach a conclusion on gimbal, but my understanding is they didn't take into account the wind speed for the gimbal event. So, gimbal is one that I think there's still some unanswered questions that haven't been answered. But I leave it to more intelligent minds to do that work, because I would be the last person you would want to turn to have a stab at the mathematics or the optics of some footage, because it's just not my wheelhouse. But I certainly find the gimbal to be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel we deserve the rest of the footage that's come from that too. Like, we only got a little snippet of it here.
Yeah, I mean, there's alleged. It's rumored that there's another 3-4 minutes. Why has if so, why hasn't that been released?
Yeah, what's that got to do with national security when you're already showing us the footage?
Exactly.
And a quick one, mate, before we finish up here, mate. Glenn's got in the comments there. Can you state your position on UAPs? Skeptic or believer that UAP exists? We're not alone. He's also jumped in the comments there saying, if you are passive on the UAP issue, you have no right to be a commentator on it. So,
Look, I will say that I think UAP is a real phenomenon. I think there is a there to UAP. I think UAP, can be attributed to misidentification, and in most cases it probably is. But I don't care about the 99% of UAP that are explainable as something that's prosaic or something that's misidentified. I care about the 1% that's truly anomalous, that requires that deep dive investigation. And that's what we want from RO, is we want those 3% of cases that are anomalous to have a conclusion reached as to what they are. And that was, one of the reasons why the Royal Australian Air Force, they said, well, while they couldn't readily explain all reports of UAS, approximately 3% of the UAS cases it received, it couldn't explain. Despite that, it still decided that, move along, folks, there's nothing to see here. We can't find any scientific or other compelling reason to continue to devote resources to the topic, which I think was the wrong approach to take. So I think that the UAP phenomenon, UAP is a real phenomenon. There is something to it. As to what UAP is, what its origin is, where it's from, what it is, when it's from, they're questions that I find fascinating, and I would love to get more clarity and answers on those questions over time. So I'm very much an open book on what UAP is, but I certainly think there is a true phenomenon there.
Yeah. I don't know, mate. I feel pretty attacked on that one because I'm probably in that category as well.
Well,
look, mate, it's wonderful, mate. Look, mate, thank you very much for joining the show, mate. It's absolutely wonderful, and all the best for your endeavours in the future, mate. Trying to attack the parliaments and whatnots.
Thank you, my
hopefully
friend.
encourage more
Look,
people to go and do it.
always enjoy having a chat with you. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to having a chat again, and yeah, I appreciate just sharing some thoughts with your audience. So thanks again.
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Look, look, you're open to people contacting you and that, and you always got your own little podcast and that, mate. Give yourself a blog, mate. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to follow me on X, formerly Twitter, my handle's just at Grant Lavac. I have a YouTube channel called The Unexplained Rundown. If you search for The Unexplained Rundown or just my name, you'll find my channel. It goes by the same name on Spotify as well, The Unexplained Rundown. So that's where I'm mostly engaged in conversation on Twitter. So feel free to follow me on there, and you'll find links to my socials and stuff as well. So.
That's wonderful, mate. Thank you very much, mate. And yeah, look, again, I'll get in touch with you, and we'll try and we'll see if we can organise some sort of heavy hitting protest, a peaceful
Yeah, keep
protest, I
me
should say.
posted. I'll be standing alongside you with you.
Cheers, mate. Look, hopefully
All
others
right.
will be backing us up on that. So, mate, all the best, mate, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Cheers, mate.
Bye for now.
Ciao. Oh, thanks for joining me there, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's wonderful having Grant there join us again, mate. He's done an absolute wonderful effort there trying to get attack the Australian government there. Obviously trying to get our activity or interaction or lack of interaction there with the UFO or UAP that the Americans have been. Obviously been here with us the whole discussion. So, I've got a bit of an idea of where we've been going with it. But, look, I hope you guys have enjoyed there. If you want to support the show there, guys, you can go and jump in the shops there. We've got to go and get back onto that again and start, get the online store going again. But you can get some awesome shirts like this. I don't know if you can see that properly, but I'll hide behind here. Get some awesome shirts like that if I can go and sort myself out properly with my shop. Heaps of other awesome stuff on there. You can go and help support the show there, or just hit that bloody like button there and share it with your friends and family. If you had an experience there or an encounter of some sort that you feel you might have, questioned there, or something that is absolutely mind blowing, and you want to share it with the rest of the world, hit me up. I'd love to have you on the show there to have a chat wherever you are in the world. Yes, I do have stuff, car stickers. They should be available on there. Like I said, I've got to go and sort it out. I've got to get back on it. Christmas has been a bit crazy there, and all last year I've been a little bit behind on everything there, so I've got to do a big catch up on everything and get everything sorted there. So if not, just hit me up in the chats in the Facebook Messenger there, and I can try and help you out a bit if you need to, if you want to do a purchase through the shop or whatnot. But yeah, again, guys, if you know someone or someone else yourself who has had an encounter of some sort, hit me up. I'd love to have you on the show and have a chat and talk about your experiences there, and hopefully encourage more people to come and talk about their experiences as well. Before I get to, what else is there? Yeah, I think that's probably about me done. Someone mentioned merch tab not working. Right, I have to go. Depends on which store, because I've got a couple of stores trying to open. I'm trying to go through all these stores at the moment. They're these online stores, and trying to get the cheapest bloody, merchandise for you, because I don't want to rip everyone off. I'm not here to go and make money on this. It's not really an interest of mine. It's just that if you want to support the show and represent the brand, then yeah, by all means, love you to do it. But I don't want to rip his off at the same time and whatnot. So I'm trying to, if anyone has any ideas on like some good online merch stores there and something that can help me out with that, that'd be fantastic there, because like I said, I don't want to rip his off. Otherwise, look, Lynn, you're saying you want to have a chat. Yeah, look, hit me up on the messengers there on the Facebook page. I'd love to have a chat with you, or you can email me at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. Otherwise, I think that'll probably do me there, guys. Hit that like button, hit that share button with your friends and family, or spread it through the socials, wherever. Any support like that is much appreciated. It also helps the what was that little thingy there? People it shows up in people's blogs a bit more when people start liking it and sharing a bit more. But look, anyway, I can't thank you enough for joining in there. Thanks for the chat there, guys. Sorry I couldn't get through everyone's chat there and questions and that, but got a good 2-hour session out of that one there, so it's not too bad. But yeah, again, look, I don't want to shut up now because I'm blabbering as I usually do. So all the best, guys. I'll talk to you soon, and hopefully we'll have another episode there maybe next week. We'll see how we go. All right, guys, all the best, and hooroo. Till next time. Catch you later.